Toulon pipped Glasgow to claim a semi-final spot. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. I have to say I'm very disappointed in Glasgow, but mostly very disappointed for Glasgow and the fans. I really thought that they would be able to get through this one, get themselves into a semi-final, potentially lining up an all URC semi-final, which would have been a big boon for the league as well, but sadly wasn't to be. Hopefully this is not a high watermark for this Glasgow team, but let's go through the game and just talk about how we ended up in this position. So Glasgow start really well. They go to the corner from penalty the opening minutes, go to the maul, but Toulon come through the middle and they isolate Hiddleston, and it was really great defence from them. Then we have a great kick through from MacDowell that forces Uisuvu to kick out. He doesn't get much distance, so there's a line out to Glasgow into 22. They then win a penalty, which they kick to the corner. Toulon get a great counter shove in the maul, but they're offside. Penalty to Glasgow, back to the corner. Glasgow then set up a dummy maul. Asher comes around the corner, pops it back inside for MacDowell, who powers over, converted for 7 points to 0. And I thought both of those players had decent games today. MacDowell more than decent. Thought he was exceptional in the losing side. Toulon then kicked to the corner from penalty. They put the ball through the hands, going right to left, and then Durain gets over to score. Conversion missed, 7 points to 5. And talking about people who had exceptional games, Durain was absolutely everywhere for Toulon today. Glasgow then camped on the Toulon line. Tuipulotu gets over, but he's held up. Back for a penalty for Warriors. Toulon under final warning. Glasgow go to the corner. Toulon immediately concede a penalty, and Kapoku goes to the bin. And then how this yellow card period went for me, it was almost certainly one of the big deciding factors in the game, if not the deciding factor. So Glasgow go through the phases before MacDowell produces an absolute beautiful pass out to Ollie Smith. He goes over in the corner, conversions missed, 12 points to 5. Toulon then worked the ball up to Glasgow line. Jean-Baptiste Gros stretches out, grounds the ball between the posts, converted for 12 points all. And that's, that was all during the yellow card period. So Glasgow went into that yellow card period leading and come out the other side, and the scores tied. And that's not what you want when you've got 10 minutes with an extra man. Toulon then kick a penalty to the edge of the 22, but Smith does so well to keep it in. It's one of these where he jumps from off the field, but then lands in field. So obviously he's keeping the ball in field. He then kicks it downfield, and there's a big wind at his back, and the ball just keeps going and going, and then finally dribbles dead, and we come all the way back for a line out into 22. And that I thought summed up some of Glasgow's luck today, right? Brilliant piece of skill, and immediately it's wiped out. Toulon then attacking in the 22. Glasgow defence manages to push them back out of the 22, but then they spin it wide. Durain gallops up the touchline, steps, kind of half breaks a tackle and over to score. Conversions missed, 70 points to 12, and Toulon now leading. Glasgow then to the corner from a penalty to go to the maul. Clock in the red, but Toulon make it unplayable. Halftime, 70 points to 12. And Toulon's maul defence was brilliant today. And, Glasgow maybe a bit over-reliance on that maul at times when they knew that Toulon were going to attack it. Maybe use it more as a kind of, a distraction for them and go with the routes. But, when you've got again, for me, probably the best attacking maul at the moment in the Northern Hemisphere. It's hard to move away from it, even if it's not quite firing for you. But it does fire later for Glasgow in the game. So then second half, Tuisova not releasing. Glasgow to the corner from the penalty. And it is... it's a good Beju, right? He claims a line out. They drive the maul, and the maul actually does get stopped by Toulon, but Hiddleston, brilliant. He breaks off on his own over to score, converted for 19 points to 7, and Glasgow were back in front. And as I said, the maul delivered for them there, but it was more, I would say, more of a Leinster maul. If you're a Leinster fan, you know exactly what I mean. Like the maul got to a certain point, it was never driving over, but similar to the way Sheehan is able to break off a stalled maul and force his way over, Hiddleston did pretty much the same thing. Brilliant from him, turning what was, an average maul into a try scored is brilliant work. Then Toulon with the Glasgow line under siege again. They win a penalty in the shadow of the post. They opt for a scrum. We have big carries from Ribbons, then Olibon, and they're right up to the line. But Glasgow over the ball. I think it was Darge. They win a penalty. Absolutely great defence from Glasgow. Toulon then score off first phase. Brex goes over in the corner. Really well worked try from them. And, just being able to unpick that Glasgow defence, as I said, off first phase. Conversions missed, 22 points to 19. The lead swaps hands once again. Glasgow then win a scrum penalty. No thoughts of kicking to the post. It's just inside the Toulon half. It's central. I think other teams certainly would have had a go, but we know with Glasgow, they very rarely kick penalties, even if they're like absolute gimmies. They back themselves to go to the corner, and for the most part, it pays off for them. They go up the line into 22, go through the phases. Toulon holding defence, and eventually an error comes, and they're able to clear. Another penalty to Glasgow for high tackle. This one is on the 10-metre line. Again, it's fairly central. No thoughts for kicking to the post, though. Up the line into 22. Again, it comes to nothing. Now, Toulon are pressing for a score. Saran gets them within 5 metres. They go through the phases. Glasgow holding him at around that 5 metre for a number of phases, but the clock is ticking down. Toulon then get a surge forward towards the line, but there's a knock on. Scrum to Glasgow, who survive, but you really feel like they need to get down that other end, ASAP, because there's very few minutes left in the game now. Glasgow do come forward. Lancaster breaks up the middle just outside the 22. They then kind of like yo-yo in and out of the 22 as they surge on, and then they're pushed back by the defence. You have McDowell and Smith with really good carries, but then eventually Toulon strip the ball. Mercer snaps it up, and then Toulon able to run down the final 30 seconds, get it off the field. Full time 22-19. Toulon progress to the semi-final. Okay, so we're going to look at the stats, and then we'll come back and talk about each of the teams. So let me pull the stats up here on the official site. Okay, so first of all, 3 tries for Glasgow, 4 for Toulon. And yeah, like Glasgow, they were looking for that 4th try that, would have got them to win at the end, but they weren't able to do it. And, again, I think another team would have taking the 3, and it's going to be interesting to see with Glasgow now in similar situations in knockouts whether they decide to take the 3, because we saw something similar happen to Leinster a few seasons ago, and they very pointedly started taking the 3s when they were on, just to make sure. But yeah, we know it's a policy in Glasgow, but it'd be interesting to see if that actually changes after this. On to attack then, meters made 335 to 309, and that's from 176 to 130 carries. So you see, like, Glasgow are making, under 2 meters per carry, and Toulon somewhere around 2.5 meters per carry for them. Clean breaks then 4 to 6, and that's from 30 defenders beaten by Glasgow to 17 for Toulon. So 30 and 4 clean breaks. That means that's one in 7.5, one in almost 8 defenders beaten to a clean break for Glasgow. That's one of the worst returns we've seen from them, and it just speaks to the quality of the Toulon scramble, I think, in this game. Toulon about 1 and 3 for them, and had Glasgow achieved somewhere even close to that, they would have had 10 clean breaks, and it probably would have been able to produce the scores, that would have won the game. Offload sent 3 for Glasgow, 9 for Toulon, 210 passes to 147. Glasgow with 53% possession to 47 and 52% territory to 48. So slightly more possession, and again slightly more of it in the Toulon half as well. Onto defence then, 165 tackles to 215. 86% for Glasgow is excellent, and 85% for having to make over 200 tackles in the game is amazing from Toulon as well. So both teams really good on defence. We can see that defences are a lot of the time on top, making the opposition go through phase after phase after phase, close to the line, not giving up points easy, and both teams have to be credited for that. Turnovers 5 for Glasgow, but 10, an amazing 10 for Toulon. And, again, it's on the back of that defence, really, that they won this game. Yes, they scored 4 tries, but, Glasgow, with a lot of chances that normally they would get over, but credit to Toulon again for their work. On to set piece then. 20 lineouts for Glasgow. They're at 95%. So I guess that's what, 20. I guess they missed 2, or no, they would have missed 1, right? So 20 out of maybe 21, I guess. They never give the total on this for some reason. And then Toulon 2 lineouts 1, 50%, so obviously that's 4. And then scrums 1, 5 from 5 for Glasgow, 7 from 7 for Toulon. Toulon, though, interesting that they backed their scrum when they had that that penalty under the post. Maybe Glasgow could have done something similar at times as well, rather than repeatedly going to the corner. But again, they did get a try out of it, and they got a try off the back of another one as well, where the maul didn't get over, but they're able to put it through the hands. Dummy maul through the hands, McDowell over to score. So again, it's hard to kind of move away from your staples, especially when the pressure is on in a quarterfinal. You're looking for your very first semi-final. And I think it was very hard for them to adapt on the field. Kicks from hands then, 12 to 14. I think that speaks a lot to the conditions that we saw with the Ollie Smith one. Kicked the ball in one direction, and it was basically going into the stands behind the posts, like a lot of the time, unless you kind of angle it right, and then kick it the other way, and it wasn't going anywhere. So kind of what you would expect really when the wind is that strong, is that you're going to get basically half your regular amount of kicks. So normal amount of kicks will be somewhere between low 20s to mid 20s, maybe high 20s. So half of that, 12 to 14 is what we got. So that's pretty much on the money for that. Kick meters then 254 to 344. So Toulon kicking a little bit more distance than Glasgow did, but again, not too much between the teams on it, and it was just on the bounce of the ball, really, whether things worked out for you or not. Rooks won then 131 to 124. Rooks lost to 1, 96% to 97, kind of where you expect a team to be. Turnovers won the Rooks and Mauls 5 to 10. We've seen that already. On to Mauls then. Glasgow, 7 successful mauls out of 8 for 88%. Toulon, just 1 successful maul out of 2. So, certainly one side of the maul, Toulon, were exceptional today. The attacking side of it, though, not so much. But again, Glasgow, they went for 8 mauls. And you would expect that Glasgow team going for that many mauls, and most of them were obviously close to the try line as well, that they would have come up with more than one try coming directly from the maul. And even then, again, Hiddleston had to work to actually get over the line, and did really well. So one of their big weapons really not firing for them today. Penalties conceded then, just 6 from Glasgow is excellent. 13 from Toulon. They had that period where they were conceding too many penalties. They got the yellow card, but again, they won the yellow card period. So, normally you think like per discipline is going to cost a team in a big game like this, but the fact that they were able to compensate for it, just about got them over the line. So let's talk about the two teams. So we talk about Toulon. So last week, certainly, against the Stormers, big case, I think, for saying that Toulon probably didn't deserve it, given what happened towards the end, the controversy that happened with it as well. Or maybe didn't deserve it is a bit too harsh, but certainly there were question marks over the win today. I don't think there can be any question marks. They were the better of the two teams, and the way that they were able to kind of, they could see the try, but then they were able to respond, and that's the way it was. It was, it was Glasgow scoring, Toulon responding, and then, once they got themselves in front, then towards the end, they were able to deny Glasgow any opportunity to be able to come back as well. That defence at the end was brilliant. Where you got Glasgow going through phase after phase. You have Ollie Smith breaking up the left. You have MacLeod with a good carry. Punching into the 22. They know if they concede another penalty, Glasgow are going to go to the corner. Maybe that will be the maul that does actually get over and gets a win for them. And when you're at that point of the game where there's only a minute or two left, if you concede, you've lost the game. So like everything is on the line there. They kept it clean, and also, they were able to drive Glasgow out of the 22 a couple of times, and they never really got them, let them get, any closer than 10 meters away from their line either. And then when the mistake came, Mercer was the first there, snaffled up. They ran down that clock, get it off the field. So yeah, I think a brilliant performance for them away from home. They're not at the level of, we've seen a Toulon side that won 3 Champions Cup in the past. That was absolutely star-studded. There are certainly stars in this Toulon team, but yeah, compared to two teams, I don't think they're on the same level. But things can happen, right? They're now into semi-final. Win the semi-final, and that belief really comes to the team then, and suddenly, maybe we're looking back in a month or so's time, about a month's time, right? With hindsight saying, oh, that is actually a fantastic Toulon team. Looking at the league form, you probably wouldn't say that at the minute, but teams really can grow in this tournament, and I think they certainly are doing that in the knockout stages. Glasgow, in contrast, I think they're shrinking in this tournament. In the knockouts, it looked like a very nervous performance. I would have thought the fact that they got that early try, got themselves a nice start, that that would have kind of settled nerves, and they would have just gone about their usual their usual job, and went like, fair enough, they concede back to 7-5, but to get themselves 12-5, you're thinking, there's still plenty of time to go in the yellow card period. Get yourself another score, get 2 scores ahead, and then start managing the game from there. And, if you can keep that kind of 2-score cushion as Toulon get more desperate in the second half, then, the space is going to open up and your attack is really going to come to the fore for you. But that never happened for them. Again, I thought they managed that yellow card period very badly. And I had to work so hard for every single score. There were so many times when it was phase after phase, pounding away, maybe getting a penalty, resetting, going again, back to the corner. But yeah, that seemed to take a lot out of them rather than Toulon having to defend it. And then in that second half, then a couple of chances at penalties to at least make it to scores even, get back to 22 all, and then worry about going for the score that could win it. And like, who cares if you win with a try or a penalty? Like, you're going to get into your first semi-final. And again, I understand that it is like, I think Glasgow, taken 1 penalty or something, and something like the last year, something ridiculous like that. Anyway, but yeah, in a position like this where everything's on the line and you have that option, they weren't easy kicks, but still, again, that's where Hero steps up and kicks it between the posts. You get even, the crowd get up, and then the crowd cheer you on. To potentially a win. But when you're losing with 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock, and you're obviously looking for a try to win it, you're not thinking about penalties anymore. There's a nervous energy in the crowd that can get, I think, to the players as well. There isn't that kind of it's the crowd are basically waiting for the team to do something to release the tension, and that can, I think, have an effect as well. I think it did have an effect on Glasgow today. There was huge expectation on their shoulders. They showed they can deal with it previously, going down to South Africa, winning the URC, but this is a step up from URC, and they certainly have been making progress. But hopefully this is going to be, a big lesson for them. And as I said previously, I hope that this is not the high water mark for Glasgow, because I think, the coaching team, the whole setup, the players, and, the fans as well, I think, to me, they're a class act, and I want to see them be successful at this level. And whether success is hopefully next year getting to a semi-final or even a final, or potentially lifting the trophy, that's what I want to see from Glasgow. Commiserations to their fans, and congratulations to Toulon on making the semi-final.